the rough thing is if you start dealing with Northerners, because Northerners speak with a lot heavier accent and they'll come in very, very strong. And if you meet people like from Liverpool, like a Scots, you won't be on this kind of thing like this high. They'll be like, nothing's the matter, and it's down by the ship, you know, right? You're not that is there, and you'll be like, okay, and you'll have no idea what they're saying. If you meet a Scot, very much the same. If you meet a drunk Scot, there's no way you're gonna be able to understand anything they say.
It may be English, but prepare to not be able to understand anything that they say for the first couple of weeks. Even after I served in Ireland first, so I got to hear the Ireland accent, the Irish accent, and then when I hopped over to Scotland, I had to learn everything again. I had to learn how to understand people. I mean, everyone can understand you. They have American television, American TV shows, so they understand your accent just fine. But saying the other way around isn't as easy. The Scottish accent, I mean, my accents are farcical, basically. I mean, if any actual Scottish people hear them, then they say all that, you know, they'd say, "Oh, okay, Crosby, that's rubbish." So it is. I'd be like, "I'm sorry, I'm trying my best," and they say, "Oh, you'd have to do better than that." You know, that'd be the Scottish people. You know, they're a lot more rough around the edges. That they have interesting words and sayings that we've never heard before. You know, on a day like today, they'd say, "Oh, it's pure drist today," and you say, "What? I'm sorry." They say, "It's pure drist today." What? I'm sorry. So they have the word drist, and drist is like gray or kind of not sunny, kind of wet, because the weather there, I mean, it rains nine days out of 10 at least once in the day. So they say, on a particularly gray or bad day, they say, "Oh, it's pure drist," or they say, "Come on, get Ben," and I say, "Get Ben, get in here, get through, come on through, get Ben." Oh, and obviously they say "I." I have that habit now when people are talking to me, especially when I talk to someone who's Scottish. I'll say, "Okay, aye, all right, yeah," and they'll say, they'll ask you how you're doing, and the traditional response is, "Oh, I'm not too bad, I'm no bad," or "I'm alright," and that means they're doing really good. If someone calls you all right, then you're okay in their books. I mean, Ireland's a little bit different. It's a whole other accent completely. Irish is a lot more sing-songy, if I were to put it, their intonations. The way that they speak is a lot more sing-songy, so it is, it's a lot more up and down in their voice. Being from the west part of Dublin, I learned that very quickly. And then you can go over to West Ireland, to a place called Cork. I loved Cork. Cork is a beautiful town, but they all called it Cark. Here from Cark. And the Northern Ireland is different altogether, which I loved. I loved how different you cross over that border, and people speak a lot differently. They say, "Oh, you get the bus. It'll cost you about £5, so it will. I'm from a place called Portadown. Portadown's a town in Northern Ireland, so it is. You never heard of Northern Ireland before? You just heard of a republic? Well, that's too bad, so it is." And there's the joke going around is that Northern Ireland is the only place where you don't need a second witness for the truthfulness of the gospel, because you can get up and you say, "I know the church is true, so I do. The Book of Mormon is the Word of God, so it is." Because they end everything with those sort of sayings, and I love it. This here, "Oh, I've been here for hours here in church. When you get out here, get out here right now." It's just wonderful. And so the accent was one of the best things. I loved learning new words and just learning to understand the people there.
England is divided up into all sorts of different sections as well. There's the South, there's the Cornish, the Devonshire, the Bath. There's the Londoners, and the Londoners have their own way of speaking and their own accent. South London is kind of more posh and proper. Well, outside of the city, Southern London is kind of more posh and proper, and so they have the most refined accents. You go north into the Midlands. Anything north of London, no one says the word "the." They say "t." So like, I'm going to store. I'm going to the store. I'm going to the store. Yeah, that would be it. And if you go far enough north, they don't say anything at all. They're just like, I'm going to store. And that's the. Although if you get into like Newcastle, they say t. There's a famous British comedian that makes fun of Newcastle by saying, "Yeah, we went to the movies to watch Toot Lion, Toot Witch, and Toot Wardrobe." There's lots of weird little quirks like that. So you go up to the Midlands. There's the Birmingham accent. There's Lancaster and Yorkshire, and every different section has a different accent. Some, like, by the end of your time though, you'll be able to pinpoint where someone's from within like the first 2 minutes of talking to them, just based on their accent. Because honestly, like, accent sometimes changes. If you move 40 miles in a different direction, they'll speak completely differently than the people that you just came from. Accents are all over the place while you're there. Do you know how we all love the British accent here? And like, I don't know about you guys, but like when Brits came over here, like all my friends would always ask them to like say like Aloha Mora, or like random like Merry Christmas Harry, or like other things the Brits would say. When I went over there, they actually, like, a lot of the younger generation love the American accent, and they want me to like say quotes from their favorite movies, or like they'd want me to try and do my best impersonation of Barney Swenson, or different things like that.
The trunk of a car is a car boot, and a flat is an apartment. You'll learn the rest of the stuff. There's just some funny things that take some time to get used to, and you'll get used to it. The thing to know about accents is that they're different from city to city. It's quite striking, actually. So you can be in Waterford, and you can tell if someone is from Dublin, or if they're from Cork or Galway, just by the way they talk. Instantly, you will know this. So the accents are that different, and it's really bizarre because, let's say, the travel time by car from Galway to Limerick are two major cities in the west that have different accents, but it's about 2 hours to drive there, and they have these different accents. Now that's abating a little bit because as the economy grows, everybody is a little bit more mobile. But back in the day, we heard from some of the older people in Belfast that they used to be able to tell by slight inflections and by slight differences in the accent. They could tell what street someone was from. Hey, do you live on James Street? Yeah, I do. They could just tell by the way you talked, because people, for the most part, were born, lived, and died on basically the same street. For most of their history, Ireland was pretty close to a third world country, very poor, and there was not a lot of mobility. And so it's only recently that that's starting to break, and that's why there's such a difference city to city in the accent.
It is English for sure. They do have some different words, and the accent definitely differs from city to city, like big city to big city. Like, I served in Glasgow and Edinburgh, and they're only about 45 minutes apart, but there's a distinct difference. Their accent, very distinct. And they even use different words in two different cities. I hope I get this right, but like, for a baby in Glasgow, they'd call babies weans, like weans, and then in Edinburgh they'd call it bairns, like, oh, my bairn. And that's another thing. When I first got my call, I have a sister-in-law she's from England, so she knows about Scotland. And I read my call, I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Edinburgh. And she's like, no, never say that again, because that's not how you say it. I was like, oh, it's Edinburgh. So Edinburgh. They also roll their R's in Scotland a lot. That's just part of the way they speak English, I guess. And but yeah, like, for example, another word, not everyone says this, but instead of no, they'll say ken. Like, for I don't know, they'll say I dunny ken. And so, like, I dunny ken what you're saying. My accent's not very good, but I like to pretend sometimes. I'm trying to think of what other words they use. Like in Glasgow, for example, a lot of times they won't say hi. People in the street are just like, all right. So, like, all right, big man. And that's what'll get your attention. Let's kind of wave at you and say stuff like that. Yeah, they talk really fast sometimes, and you just gotta get used to it. For example, lake. They don't say lake; they say loch. So you've heard like Loch Lomond or Loch Ness. Those are just lakes. That's what loch means. What else is there? There's a lot of words that are British as opposed to American. Like, they don't say the trunk of a car; they'll say the boot of a car. Or they don't pronounce it garage; they say garage. There's some other, they spell things differently too. I thought it was funny that they, instead of spelling tire, T-I-R-E, they spell it T-Y-R-E. So the tires of a car, T-Y-R-E. It's mostly similar. It's just getting used to how they say things, and a lot of times, like, the more people watch like American movies, or their accents won't be as thick, or the more they work around people from, because it's also like a melting pot, like I said. Like, people from Aberdeen moved down to Glasgow, and so they'll work with people from Glasgow, and their accents will kind of start to mimic each other a little bit. But there are some people you'll meet, especially like just the common Joe Schmo on the street. His accent can be really thick sometimes, and it's just old people too. Their accents can be really thick, and you just gotta really listen. Sometimes I have to say it again, but by the end, it's, you get really used to it. It's kind of funny sometimes, especially in Edinburgh. It's a big touristy city, and sometimes we hear Americans who are there, and my companions and I would just kind of cringe and just like, oh, they sound terrible, but we don't miss that. But
yeah, so the accents were not really what I expected them to be. A lot of times when you think of England, you kind of think of like the proper, oh, would you like a cup of tea, sir? Like, type of accent. But when I got into England, I realized that it was actually not quite like that. The accent is different indeed, and it does sound British, but not quite as posh, specifically up in the Manchester areas. So the first place I went and served at was Liverpool. And Liverpool is kind of known throughout England for their accent. They call it the Scouser accent. And it's kind of like a little bit higher. It's like, I'm from Liverpool, you're right, mate? It's kind of like a little bit quicker, a little bit faster, a little bit higher up. And so when I was serving there, it kind of, I always had to be like, wait, what did you just say to me? It took me a little bit of time to get used to it. And one of the things that took me a little bit of time to get used to as well is a common greeting that people have in England is just, oh, you all right? Like, you all right, mate? And so I was like, yeah, I'm all right. Does something seem like it's wrong? But, that's kind of a common way that they greet each other. It's just, oh, you all right? You all right? And so I learned quickly to say, yeah, I'm all right. You all right? Just as kind of a common, like, yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing? That's kind of the equivalent of us saying, oh, how are you? To someone that we haven't seen for a while. The other parts of England don't really have quite the same accent as Liverpool does. When you go up north, it's called the Cumbrian accent. It's like a little bit thicker, and you almost have like some more Scottish influence, especially as you start getting up towards the border. And then Manchester's like a little bit thicker, a little bit heavier. Like, I'm from Manchester, and so it's like a little bit kind of heavier. I don't really know how to explain it beyond that. But in terms of like learning the accent, you don't, as a missionary, you don't need to try to like learn the accent. You don't need to try to speak like everybody else. There will be a lot of phrases. There will be a lot of things with the language that will come, not like just words that you'll start using, and you'll always refer to going back to the flat instead of going back to your apartment. There'll be just a lot of lingo and a lot of words, such as the rubbish bin instead of the garbage can. There'll be just like a lot of words that will kind of come along as you're there. In terms of like specific preparation, I wouldn't worry too much. There's a lot of things that I just kind of picked up as I went along. And in terms of like picking up an English accent, I wouldn't say I really picked up an English accent. I think that there's a lot of ways, like the inflections and how they ask a question. For example, like in America, we ask, oh, are you going to the store? But in England, they'd ask, are you going to the store? Like, they'd kind of have like a higher inflection at the end. And I picked up a lot of that on my mission just from always being around English people. And, I think you become a little bit more soft-spoken because Americans, coming from an English perspective, Americans are usually a little bit louder, a little bit kind of boisterous in public, whereas the English are a little bit more reserved and kind of a little bit more keep to themselves in public. And so the accent was fun. It's fun to learn a lot of new words, new lingo, but it's something that, definitely comes.
They definitely talk differently, and you go across the country and they all talk differently from place to place as well. So I started out in Wales. They kind of have a little bit of a sing-songy accent, and you go over to Lincoln. I went over to Lincoln. It's on the east coast, near Nottingham, and again, different accent. You go to Birmingham, and there's like 15 different accents just in the city of Birmingham. And to be honest, when I first got over there, when I was speaking on the telephone, I hated talking on the phone. I hated it. My trainer would always give me the phone, and we'd go every other day, and I struggled to understand what people said on the phone. What? So talking on the phone was a little bit difficult, but whenever you could see their lips, it wasn't a problem. It wasn't a problem. Besides just the phone, and eventually I got used to that as well. So, but it's a lot of fun. All the accents are fun. I did not pick up an accent when I was there. A lot of people asked me if I did, and I guess I'm just too American. But to be honest, what I found is that a lot of missionaries that had an accent, it was a little bit contrived. They wanted to pick up the accent, when I guess I wasn't really focused on that. So rubbish is garbage or trash, and that's a term that I still use today. Rubbish is something, and it's also just to say something that's rubbish. You kind of, it's an expletive maybe a little bit as well. And then also pants are underwear. So that's one that it took me a little bit while to remember, get used to. On this, we in order to find people, a lot of times you just go out and try to contact them on the street. You just out on your bikes and go talk to people, and you're searching for anything you can say to talk to this person, just to stop them. And so I complimented people on their pants a number of times, and got a couple of weird looks because of it. Eventually, I did get used to it. And it's actually trousers. So what we would call pants are trousers there. So brilliant. People say brilliant a lot. There's all sorts of terms. I don't know any other ones that are super common or that would come up a lot. But that's one I would definitely warn people of, is pants. It's trousers.